So, like, before I say anything or like I try and influence you at all, I want to know, just tell me what your full on, raw, unfiltered uh, reaction to A Night of the Seven Kingdoms is as someone who's never watched Game of Thrones, watched House of the Dragons, or read any of the books or any of George's stuff before.
All right, so first off, from like presentation, like as TV shows and on-screen media, I did not expect that to be like the editing style they would go with. Like at first, it felt like a little bit surprising because I usually from something that's set in like either like medieval times or just any like historical, well, not historical, but like quasi historical periods in history. They always go for like the slower pans, the shifting from one camera angle to another always feels like either deliberately flat or just smooth camera motion. But this was genuinely like, and I don't know if they use the same editing style for Game of Thrones or House of the Dragon. So I don't know if that's a consistent thing. But for me, this was like a huge breath of fresh air for something set in quasi medieval setting.
And what did you think of like the story itself? And well,
The
like
story itself,
yeah,
I oh sorry, go ahead.
no, that was pretty much it.
Yeah, the story itself I really enjoyed. Like at first, because the only things about like Dunkin' Egg that I knew from you obviously before going into it, because like I started reading The Hedge Knight like ages ago, back when you recommend I read the whole series, and I unfortunately I kind of like dropped it halfway through, just got distracted by everything else in
All
life.
right.
Not that the book was like uninteresting or poorly written. No, I was genuinely enjoying my time, but then just know me being me. I rarely finish the books I start unless I kick myself in the rear and actually do it, which is why audiobooks are such a major help for me. I just wasn't able to find the audiobooks for Hedge Knight and the rest of the Duncan Egg series. But anyway, back to the story. The At first, I was expecting, since you said it feels like a little bit more lax compared to the Song of Ice and Fire series. Like it is more of a both its own thing, like it's something disconnected that's in this setting, but at the same time, I don't know. I think you were the one who drew this comparison because I was like, maybe it's just me Mandela affecting myself, but I am fully convinced that you compared Duncan Egg to like what Hobbit is to Lord of the Rings. So I immediately thought, oh, okay, so that means that the story itself will also feel like a lot more lax, a lot more chill, like maybe a little bit more, well, not cliche, but like a little bit more typical for this story. And so going into it, I expected that. I thought, okay, it's like a little bit more of your typical, like maybe well, not necessarily swashbuckling, but like this fantasy medieval adventure with like a very cozy vibe to it. And what pleasantly surprised me is because in the modern age of everyone trying to be subversive and therefore like nothing is subversive, and then you have something that feels cliche but earnest, there you also gotta find like a good middle ground. Is it like cliche because you are not original, or is it cliche because like you are earnestly exploring these topics? Like the whole idea between are we evolving the storytelling, or are we revolutionizing the storytelling? Are we subverting the existing trope, creating new ones, or are we essentially taking another look at the existing tropes and like dusting them off? And at first, I thought that the Dunkin' Egg was gonna be dusting off the existing tropes, something more chill, something more typical, but delivered in a very quality way. But then I see the moments where, at the same time, you kind of expect this subversion of some of the plot beats, but at the same time, you think to yourself, how will that be delivered? And in all honesty, I have to say I am very pleased with which storytelling tropes they decided to keep, and which storytelling tropes the Hedge Knight decided to tackle in a different way. Like we have our whole hero's journey arc, but like well, not necessarily the hero's journey, but like some archetypes from the hero's journey, like the wise sage, the young apprentice. Given the also like given the flashback in episode 5, yeah, I believe it was episode 5. We have like this kind of the idea of Dunk being young Dunk being like a bit of an unwilling protagonist, both due to his naivete and his also him like growing accustomed and almost comfortable in the place where he and his childhood loved one had been staying, had been living all their presumably all their childhood lives. And so you have this like almost like unwilling protagonist, like having something having a tragedy befall upon his life, and being adopted by a wise sage who also at the same time kind of subverts the idea of a wise sage, because while he is a very earnest and a very heroic character, he's not a classical like bravado-ish hero in a typical sense. Like he's went on his life, like his 80 years of life, never having one attorney. He's not the idyllic image of a knight, but still he is a man of great dignity and personal honor. So I'm glad that we don't have this over churning of like subverting every classical trope until it feels kind of disingenuous, until it feels like we're just deliberately trying to like go against everything that the genre is known for. But at the same time, when they do deviate, it feels very earnest. It's like this very nice middle ground for me between trying to tackle it in a new way, like between like the revolutionary way of like is establishing new tropes and dusting off the old ones. Like it has both the sincerity and the unexpectedness that's essentially like the best of both worlds. And also given the fact that this we're talking about the TV series, given the fact that I haven't finished the Hedge Knight book, I have to say you were entirely right that this feels more like a very damn well paced 4 hour movie. Like to me, given the fact like some of my favorite media in recent years, like things like Andor, things like now the Duncan Egg is now up there. With something like Andor, given the fact that it's split into like very readable acts, very much like kind of like an
3 episode
episodic structure.
structure.
Like
Yeah.
each of the arcs feels like a long hour episode, along like maybe a 1.5 or 2 hour episode. I keep forgetting the runtime of Andor episodes. And like that is a TV series. It's paced like a TV series. We have the home planet arc, we have the Aldani arc, we have the prison arc, etc. And they feel like big meaty chunks. And if you and you can watch it, you can binge watch it, but it's also very well paced to like in my opinion take breaks in between these arcs. Duncan Egg is perfect for a binge watch because it flows like a whole movie. I am very glad I decided to watch it pretty much in one sitting. First, when I watched the 5 episodes, and then when I went back for episode 6, I think it was a wise decision to rewatch the entire thing within the 4 hours that it runs for total, because it genuinely has a very good rhythm to it.
Um, yeah, it's actually only 3 hours long. The whole thing put together, like the entire show of Duncan Egg is about as long as 3 episodes of Andor. But that kind of
Copy that. In that case, apologies,
no,
because
no, you're right, and what you were talking about, where like it's similar to Andor in the sense that it's split up, where the first 3 episodes are kind of the chill out episodes, where it's just Duncan Egg getting Dunk ready for the tourney, until Egg's reveal, Egg's a prince, and then the rest of the other 3 episodes is the arc of the Trial of Seven that is the main crux and climax of the story. But you were talking about the subversion of tropes. Let's actually like go through them. I want to ask you, were you actually surprised by any of the tropes that they subverted? Like we'll go through them. Like were you fooled by the by Egg's reveal that he's a prince?
By Egg's reveal, in terms of like in general, was I surprised by the fact when the tropes were subverted? Like both yes and no, because like the way the story was flowing, I was constantly like on the edge of my seat, almost like in this anticipation of thinking, will this flow in a very classical way, or will they deviate? And whenever things felt very classical, whenever things felt quite typical, not that it's bad, mind you, I was a bit surprised, but at the same time, another part of me was like, aha, well, I told you. And then when things were subverted, same thing happened, but like flipped on its head. Like a part of me was like, oh, okay, I didn't expect it to happen at this point in time. But then the other part of me was like, aha, I told you. But with eggs specifically, I don't know if it's due to me like having being like in the mood of like taking everything very earnestly in the story, which in a lot of ways I do have to commend the titular actor, not the titular actors, the primary actors, the actors for Dunk and Aegon, because with the way both of them play off of each other and the way the Dunk's character is written, at a certain point, like literally like the episode of the reveal, at a certain point, I just started thinking to myself and just the viewing the show in a lot more of take it as is kind of way, like this like bit of my mind that like always nudged me to like take a grain of salt with everything. I started viewing things more through like the prism of the way Dunk sees things. Like not that I view like everything that every character says for like what they say, because obviously we'll get to it later. I really like the way the dialogue is written in this series. I really like how blunt and upfront Dunk is, and how in many ways he's oblivious to the double speak or the sarcasm or just any form of facade put up through dialogue by the other characters. But by that episode, especially due to the chemistry he and Aegis, his now Squire, have developed, I completely tuned out all the well, not red herrings, all the red flags. Yes, all the red flags that that Egg had. The fact that the one of the royal family was in that same tavern as him. The fact that his head is shaven, and a part of me like like if I had kept that more of a cynical part of me turned on, I might have caught on to that. But once again, massive commendments to the way the story is written, paced, and the way the main character explores this world alongside us as the viewer. That genuinely surprised me, because I by the time they were about to curb stomp Dunk, I knew that in that moment, okay, most likely, like I know that the Song of Ice and Fire and Game of Thrones are very popular for like either killing off or maiming their characters, or just having like completely like horrible things happen to them. But I thought to myself, well, if this is the Hobbit to the Song of Ice and Fire's Lord of the Rings, then most likely he is gonna be saved. And I thought to myself, will it feel too Deus Machina-y, or will it be? And I was thinking to myself, oh, maybe like Lionel, like in a very like drunk stupor, just comes in, like just I don't know, sets things ablaze, and I'm like trying to come up with a rational explanation for what may come, and then Aegon's reveal just hits me out of the blue, and I was like, oh, that's why you're bald. I thought you. And then I thought, well, obviously this universe doesn't have chemotherapy, but a part of me thought maybe he has like some fantasy.
Oh, you thought he was
cancer
sick? You thought he was sick?
A part of me, yes. A part of me thought that he was sick. He had like fantasy leukemia.
Well, like the excuse he gives is that he has lice, or the excuse that Dunk thinks is that he has lice, and so you shave your head to get rid of lice. Um, but okay, so that's an interesting take on the egg reveal. Now, probably the other big turn of the story is Baelor coming to rescue Dunk, despite the fact that he is the prince, the heir of the throne. He's stooping down to help and support this hedge knight against his own family, nonetheless. And that's the moment whenever he rides through the gates and says, "I will support Sir Duncan," and that's whenever you actually finally get to hear the iconic Game of Thrones theme. What did you think of that part?
That one actually didn't surprise me because I was rooting for that to happen, and I'm really glad the way it happened. Because when the people had stood up in in the audience, I immediately knew that either he's gonna like hurl some insult at Dunk, or maybe like I was expecting a very like a bathos moment, essentially like having the tension rise and then be subverted either through joke or something crass. And so whenever he farted, I was like, well, oh, okay, okay. So I expected that, and so I think to myself, they are most likely not gonna execute Dunk right now. The trial will happen the way it was built up. I don't think there will be like this like a small comical comedic path bathos followed by like a large tragic bathos. I'm just sitting there like rooting for Balon to come in because in my opinion it was very well set up as to where it doesn't feel as you are like what would be the most proper way to phrase this in English, as to where you're not frustrated by like having something like this obvious like be delayed. No, it was, in my opinion, it was set up just enough as to where you, as if you were, don't think that it's like the most obvious choice, but you are actively rooting for it because the way they've set up their interaction, especially when the Dunk was going through the fortress when he was about to go to the game master, and the royal family was there. So Dunk was kind of like, do I go in? Do I not? And so he kind of like was unintentionally spying. At least like I believe it was unintentional due to like how stunted he is. I don't think it was would have ever been something that he intentionally do. So I think he was just stunned by the fact, oh fuck, the royals are there. Do I come in? Do I not? Do I come in? Do I not? And so basically, he was noticed, he comes in, and the fact that that Balin was the am I saying his name correct? Baylor, right?
Baylor is
Baylor,
like
Baylor, terribly sorry. So the fact that Baylor was the only one who treated him with respect, and also the only royal who remembered Sir Arlen of the Pennytree, like ever since that moment, like a part of me was expecting either we're gonna get kind of like a breaking moment by the end of the series where even Baylor starts treating Dunk like shit, or this was a setup for like Baylor eventually vouching or standing up for Dunk in some way, shape, or form. So by the time we see that no, we see that Dunk's team is short staffed, the Apple Fox has decided to fuck off to the other team. They knight the younger cousin, but they're still one man short. And at that moment, like my heart's racing, and I'm thinking to myself, "Come on, Baylor, you honorable motherfucker, step in." And such joy and catharsis that I felt in that moment. Because if they had set it up too much, it would have felt like a delayed gratification, like a delayed fan service, like something you know is coming, something you are pining for, not because not only because you think it would make sense, not only because you want it, but because it was set up to such a degree that it cannot not happen. And like that's something I really don't like when stories do that. We like there is an expression where I'm from. Don't drag the cat by its balls. Don't drag the cat by its testicles. So like don't delay the gratification that is so obviously set up, but they set it up just enough as to where you're pining for it, but it's not too obvious for the story to take that turn. Like you want it to take that turn, but it's not been set up as something inevitable.
right, like quite edging us, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
perfect, perfect. Like, yeah, literally, literally, delayed
I
gratification.
like I like that I like that expression, don't grab the cat by the balls. That's funny. But and very appropriate for the type of humor of Game of Thrones and George and things like that. But alright, for this third big twist, I would say it's probably the death of Baelor. Um
That one, That one I didn't expect up until both the younger Apple cousin and the armor smith needed both of them needed to remove the helmet because it was caved in. The moment they said that, like, that there's complications, that there's a cave in the helmet, I knew that something was coming. I did not expect him to die. Admittedly, I thought he was gonna, like, maybe suffer a debilitating injury because he mentioned, and granted, in retrospect, like, that is what should have keyed me to it even more. The fact that his fingers are stiffening, and I thought to myself, oh, because I am while I used to study anatomy, I am not an expert on anatomy. I am not a doctor. I'm not anything. I thought to myself, is it possible for a person to, like, receive a debilitating injury and, like, going through, like, this adrenaline burst, not get paralyzed up until, like, maybe like half an hour later? So that's what I was thinking. But I need to ask, like, my like other my friends who are studying medicine, who are studying to be surgeons or work in the farm. I have a couple medic students mates I know. I need to ask them that if that's even possible, because that was my very medically ignorant operative theory, and then to realize, oh. Well, of course, his skull is crushed. Fuck, he's dead. Like, that I did not expect, genuinely.
Hmm. Yeah, like and I've seen the audience's reaction to that moment, and that seems to be like the linchpin moment for the drama of the show that I see everyone crying at, and like probably like the big heartbreak moment for them. But to stick with the subversion of tropes, the next one is probably the biggest reveal of Dunk isn't actually a knight. He was never knighted by Sir Arland. Um,
That one I was expecting for the longest time, up until
hmm,
the like when he was presented in front of the royal court, in front of the royal family to decide his fate, and he asked for asked for a combat trial. I was expecting at any point for someone to, like, either dig something up, or for, like, Dunk to break and reveal that he wasn't knighted. But the moment we get the episode with the trial of the seven, and, like, right as he gets knocked off his horse and we go into the flashback sequence, I start thinking to myself, oh fuck, maybe he wasn't bullshitting, maybe he was telling the truth. And then we come to the scene of where Sir Arlen, in a moment of cosmic irony, pretends that, oh, I'm dead, but then I gotta finish this story, and, like, the way it further goes on, even though, like, he didn't die in that scene. Like, that scene very clearly foreshadowed the fact that, yep, Dunk was not going to be knighted going further. I don't know if in the book Arlen proceeded to die that next day or not, but after the fifth episode, I thought to myself, damn, that is a good way to make it to essentially play off of, once again, Dunk's very earnest nature throughout, like, the majority, like 99% of the story, where he is always very well, not necessarily blunt, is in like a is in a rude way. He's very upfront. He's very honest. It's very hard for him to do something like doublespeak. So after a while, after having, like, seen the setting through the prism of Dunk, I started to believe, well, all right. Probably at this point, I'm convinced that he was telling Game Master the truth. That, yeah, he was knighted, but, there was no one to fucking see it. Up until the flashback episode, and I realized, oh, that is a good way to do it. That's a good way to play with expectations. Kind of like, I wouldn't necessarily call it like a double subversion, but, well, technically it is, but it's so well executed, so like very well woven into the story and into like who Duncan is as a character, because it's not something out of malice. It's not something done out of malice. It's not something done out of pride. It's something done out of his love and cherishment of what Arlen meant to him, and this whole idea of him like winning the tourney for Sir Arlen's memory, as to where that is the one lie he ever told, and the one lie he ever successfully told to both the characters and the audience, as to where after a while I started believing that, and because that lie comes inherently from a very loving place, from a place of needing that to happen in his life, of needing to accomplish that in order to feel like Sir Arlen's memory has been honored, to essentially make do this as a tribute to him.
Yeah, and also there is, I should bring up, there is still a little bit of ambiguity in there, in that it's in theory possible that after Sir Arlen says a true knight has to finish the story, in between that moment and in between whenever he actually died, I guess it is possible he could have knighted Dunk in it, and Dunk is telling the truth. But at least in the books, and I think the way that the audience is supposed to take it is that yes, Dunk isn't a knight. He is lying that whenever he says that he's a knight. In the books, it's a lot less blatant. So there are no flashbacks with Sir Arland in the book. The only thing that we get from Sir Arland is literally what you saw in the opening first 5 minutes of the story of Dunk burying him, Dunk briefly mentioning his time with him, saying that you didn't hit me unless I deserved it, except for that one time, and that. But overall, you were a pretty good man, and that is it. That is all we know about Sir Arland, and that's all the flashback we get of Sir Arland. That him and Dunk were going on a journey. He got a chill and died from a cold in the rain, and because he's old, and whenever they don't outright specify that Dunk is lying about being a knight, what happens in the book is that anytime Duncan says that he's a knight, and then someone challenges it or questions it by saying like, "Are you?" His ears get red and he gets a bit flustered, and that's supposed to be your hint that, oh, he's lying. Sarlin never knighted him. Um, and that's the big hint, and probably the biggest hint is with Raymond Fossaway asking Dunk to knight him, and Dunk is fumbling with the words for the vows. And the reason why he's fumbling with the words of the vows is because he
Because
doesn't
he
know
never
them.
heard it.
He's never heard them. Yeah. Um, and in the books, those are your only two big hints that Dunk is lying. It's a lot more subtle in the books. But obviously, you can't hear Dunk's thoughts in the TV show, so they need to make it a lot more explicit with flashbacks and well, what you saw in the show, where like I've talked to many people who have read the books, and on their first read through, they pretty much always tell me like, "Oh, I never even picked up on that he might be lying." Um, but in the show, I think everyone that I've talked to was able to figure out like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's lying about being a knight, and you included as well. And so the last subversion of tropes that we'll talk about before we like get into like characters or whatever is Egg lying about his father Makar giving him permission to go with Dunk. What did you think of that?
Oh, okay. That one I wasn't sure on. Given the fact that like every other episode I've watched twice, and episode six I've only watched once. I was half and half. I was split whether or not Egg is telling the truth. Like as he comes to Dunk at the end of episode six. Like is did his father actually permit that? Did Aegon like pull out like extremely like puppy dog sad eyes and like was allowed to do that,
No,
or did
no,
he sneak out of the house?
Oh, okay. So maybe you didn't see this. So there's a post-credit scene at the end of the
Oh
show.
shit! I did. Fuck.
Okay,
A part of me thought like, okay, there probably is one, but another part of me thought, not like,
in the last
do they
episode there
still even
is.
do those? Oh fuck.
And
Okay.
no, you're all right. I'll just tell you what it is, and you can go look it up. So the post-credit scene is Aryan, Daeron, Maekar, and the rest of the Targaryen family. They're on their way home. They're on a carriage ride home, and then Maekar is like, counting the heads of all the children, like a teacher, counting like his students, and then he just goes, "Where the fuck's Egg? Where's Egg?" So that's the confirmation that Egg snuck off to go with Dunk at the very end. But earlier, Maekar did give permission for Dunk to be or for Egg to be Dunk's squire, so long as Dunk worked for Maekar at Summerhall. But Dunk proposed a counter offer of like, instead of going to Summerhall, by the way, is the palace where Maekar and his family live. Um, Dunk says that he would offer to take Egg, but he would live as a hedge knight on the road, and learn how to become the knights the same way that he did. And Maekar wasn't up for that because he's his
last son.
yeah, he's his last son, in his own words. And that is actually the biggest difference between the book and the show, where in the book, Maekar outright does give Egg permission to go with Dunk as a hedge knight.
Oh, I see.
And it annoys me because it takes away kind of like the most important thing about Maekar as a character, where Maekar is a dick. He's a dick. Like, he kills his brother by accident. He's a dick to his kids. He's done a bad job at being a father. He's raised Aryan to be a psycho. He's raised Daeron to be a drunk. He has another son called Aemon, who you never got to see in this season, but he exists. And he has two other daughters that you didn't see either, but supposedly they're good. And so he sees Egg as his last chance to raise a good son, raise a good boy. He thinks that his other two sons are a lost cause, and he thinks it's his fault that they're a lost cause. But the most interesting thing about Maekar is that he is an asshole. He's rude to Dunk. He's rude to all these people. But the most interesting thing about Maekar is that he genuinely does believe people are capable of change. They can change for the better. I don't know if you caught this, but the first time we ever meet Baelor and Maekar, it's whenever they're talking about where Egg and Daeron have gone missing, and then Maekar's like swearing away. It's like, I'm gonna fucking like put those boys into shape if it fucking kills me, and things like that. And then Baelor says something to the effect of like, calm down, like, we know that Daeron is a drunk and Aryan is a bit of a fool and Egg is a bit of a wild child. But it's a very subtle interaction of Baelor actually thinks that Daeron, Aryan, and Egg are like lost causes, and like people can't change, and they're way, you're just born as you are, and there's no like real way to change that. But Maekar, despite all of his faults, even in that interaction, he's saying, "I'll make them change if it kills me." That, even though he's being a dick about it, that is emblematic of like, he does genuinely believe that people can change for the better. So it's a big humbling moment where he is willing to let his son go with this hedge knight, because he genuinely believes his son can change and be a good boy, and he's willing to sacrifice being a father in his son's life for that to happen. It's a very humbling moment for a character who overall is quite a dick. So for the show to say that it wasn't really his decision, it kind of rubs me the wrong way a little bit, but we'll see how it goes with that.
Agreed, agreed. Like from the character standpoint, I absolutely understand what you mean now in retrospect. Like it adds an additional like very fitting layer to the character. I just think given the fact given what we see in the show, given the limited amount of screen time and character work done for him, I do think that, and most likely it is just due to the nature of the show. I do think there is merit to Egg sneaking away because it very much reinforces Egg's character, and we have already had like so much of Egg in the show as to where it feels very befitting of his character. And at the same time, it's a bit of like a bit of an ironic salt to the paternal wound of his father, due to the fact that like throughout in this show he is like lost all of his children in like one way or another, like not physically, mind you, but like he's lost Dagon to his pride and ambition. He's lost the long hair one. I haven't yet remembered the names to being a drunkard, and he has lost touch with Aegon. So it does feel fitting, but I do agree that it would have fleshed out his character and giving him another dimension had it been his choice to give away Egg. And I am interested to see the way the series tackles it going into season two.
Hmm. Yeah, I'm interested in it too. What I think is going to happen, and I think the reason why they did it this way, is in order for Maekar to come back in season two. Just like minor spoiler for season two, uh, with the exception of Duncan Egg, we are not going to see any of the other characters that we saw in the season again, unfortunately.
How dare,
Because
not even Lionel. I love
no,
Lionel.
not Lionel, not Lionel, like none of them, not Arya, yeah, not any of them, not the Fossaways. They're all one and dones. Um, Dunk and Egg themselves are the only two consistent characters. But what I imagine they're gonna do in later seasons is try and sneak ways into try and like get beloved characters to come back again. Uh, because they know like these are such good characters and we want to see more of them. So I think that's having it so that Egg snuck off without Megkar's permission is going to be a way to get Megkar to come back and to look for Egg. And here's my crackpot theory about what the next season's going to be like. I think, in addition to how the second book happens, we are going to get a new subplot of Megkar looking for Egg, and it's going to flip flop between those two. The main plot that's from the book, and this new subplot of Maekar looking for his son. I'm gonna make a guess that season two is gonna end with Maekar accepting that no, actually going with Dunk is the best decision, and him going home and leaving Egg with Dunk, as he does in the book.
That does make sense though. Like I'm really interested to see where it goes, because it can do either a Spartacus TV show thing or a Spartacus TV show thing, of where like throughout the Spartacus TV show they have the storyline of the gladiators and the storyline of the Romans, the political side of Rome during that period of time through the hyperbolized fictional lens. And so it could either be something like season one of Spartacus or Gods of the Arena, where both flesh out the characters within within each of the subplots, but also nicely mirror each other. And of course, we given the fact that I know very little to nothing about the rest of the setting, I think I don't know how likely that is, but also given the comparison with the Roman subplots of the Spartacus TV show, I guess it would also be a good way to tackle some like political world building of the setting. But it also runs the risk of doing the Spartacus TV show thing of like season two of Spartacus, the of Spartacus Vengeance, where the subplots do technically flesh out their characters, but they don't mirror each other at all, and they feel like dragging the cat by the balls.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so that's the tropes and the like the subversions. And we kind of went for a little bit of a beat by beat with the plot. So to dive into characters real quick, we already talked a lot about Duncan Egg, and we talked a bit about Baylor and Makar. So we'll skip over those ones and go tackle some of the other characters. What did you think of Lionel Baratheon? That's the guy with the antlers for.
All right, that is my fucking favorite character
Mm,
of the entire series. That is essentially that is drunk me. That is actor me. That is the me that I show. That is
he's
me
your
that I
Ryan
show to the
Gosling. He's
world.
literally you.
Yeah, yeah. That's literally me. With an asterisk. The me that I show to the world. The me that when I'm alone or with people, very few people that I deeply trust, I'm very tired. I'm very upfront, very blunt, but also like very sincere. But Lionel is like the party goer me. If I need to attend something public, if I am commissioned as an actor, if I'm out drinking with someone, that's me. That's me. I fucking love that motherfucker. Cause I know, I know when that motherfucker is alone with his thoughts, he's as much of a sad but like romantically honest wreck as myself. Plus phenomenal acting. God damn, that is one charismatic some bitch.
Yeah. He didn't I from what I've seen, he's the fan favorite character. Me personally, he didn't really do too much for me. I definitely think he's a much better improvement over the books where like there's especially with Dunk's squad, as in the knights who helped Dunk um in his trial by seven. One of the big improvements of the show is fleshing out those characters. Like I'm not even joking. For three out of the seven knights who help Dunk, three of them don't even get a line of dialogue. So like, there's nothing to the two Humphreys and the religious zealot who knights who I forget the name of, and it's kind of similar with Lionel where he's severely nerfed in the books, but they try to like give him more personality and make him more like a swashbuckling piratey rogue in this adaptation. And also like I think the reason why I didn't really take to him as much as other fans do, and this is kind of like maybe my biggest problem with George and this show, and like this is really more of a problem I have with George than it is I do for this show. I don't think George is that funny. I'm sorry. I don't find his humor all that funny, and a lot of the jokes that are in the books carry over onto this show. Although there are a lot more original jokes, but people are gonna crucify me if they hear this. I gotta say, I love George. I think his writing for drama is brilliant and fantastic. But I don't think I've read all of his Ice and Fire books multiple times. I don't think he's ever made me laugh once. At least with this show, I laughed three times, I think. And one of the jokes was from Lionel Baratheon. The Lionel Baratheon joke that actually made me laugh, I don't know if you picked this up, was in this last episode, whenever he's sitting with Dunk and Dunk is giving the meme soldier PTSD stare, and Lionel's chatting away with him, and telling the Maester to fuck off, and fuck off, witch. You couldn't heal him if you tried. The joke that made me laugh was whenever like Lionel is saying goodbye. It's like the last thing that he says in the show, and then he says, "I'll see you after the roast," and then it hard cuts to Baylor's cremation.
Yeah, that was the cut. Like that immediate cut to the funeral. That made me cackle like a hyena because I like that is the type of humor I. Hold on a second. One moment.
There you go ahead.
Terribly sorry, that was a call from work. So back to it. The hard cut from see you back at the roast to the funeral of Baelor made me cackle like a hyena because like that is uh, that is in my opinion a prime example of when like how to do crass humor. Like you don't overdo it, but when you do it, it's quick and to the point, and that made me think of the way I try to tackle like skits for like the videos I make whenever I like make reviews and whatnot because I mainly make them to entertain myself so I can like watch them back and laugh like a fucking dumbass to the shit I made.
Yeah, the other two jokes that got me were whenever Dunk and Egg are like sitting in a tent, and Dunk says that everyone thinks that I'm stupid, and Egg asks him, and then Doug's like, and what? And then Egg's like, what did you do when people called you stupid? And then he's like, what pisses out of yours? And then Egg just puts his hands in the in the air, like, what? I thought you were gonna make a point about that. That was quite funny. And I
Yeah,
forget.
that didn't necessarily make me laugh, but like that made me smile because like that perfectly illustrates both characters and also the fact I am genuinely surprised how well both Dunk and Egg are cast. They
Oh yeah,
play
the
off of each other
casting's
fucking
phenomenal.
perfectly. Like that scene just pictures that like in the perfect way. Like the pantomime of Aegon. Like the kid can act and like all like not only through like dramatic monologues and whatnot, but like also what's like important for me the dude can pantomime like when you can sell just through the movements of your body what you're trying to do. Damn,
Yeah.
that's good. I rarely see that from younger, especially like kid actors, because they like even when child actor can act, like usually their body movement is like quite stilted, and like this kid can fucking pantomime. This motherfucker can do theater. Holy shit, love that.
Yeah,
That
like
scene
one of the
was
moments
absolutely wonderful.
I don't cry that much at media, but one of the moments that actually got me choked up, it had nothing to do with a death and it had nothing to do with anything tragic. The moment that came the closest to getting me to cry was whenever Egg's about to cry because Dunk's shouting at him and he's sorry for getting Dunk into trouble. And I'm like, oh, it's okay, little boy. You know, I wanted to give him a hug and tell him that everything's going to be fine. But to go back to the humor briefly again, like, and this is probably okay. I should probably give my thoughts about the whole show or for as a whole. I'm ridiculously close to the source material. The Hedge Knight book is one of my favorite books ever. It might be my favorite. It's up there with Frankenstein as one of my favorite books. So I'm ridiculously attached to the source material. And so like I could get frustrated whenever like they change things and like I don't think the themes of the book land as well as they do in or I don't think the themes of the book land in the show as well as they do in the source material. But generally speaking, I do like how for the most part I think the audience generally got the themes that the book is trying to say. Um and I like that it's a big slap to the face of all the people who say that George is a cynic whenever this is like the least cynical story ever. Um, it's to be noble in the face of cynicism in a lot of ways. But to touch on the humor, like I'd say the worst thing about this show is that it's a brilliant show. It's a great show that I would recommend. However, there are just moments in it that I think just outright suck. And they're not like long moments, they're just like brief snap moments, like we'll get them out of the way. And like this is what has been very difficult for me to sell this show to other people. And these parts are not in the books, but Ira Parker, the director, feels the need to add them in. Where every episode, he feels the need to have a big, shocking, gross out moments. Where the first episode, there's a hard cut of Dunk shitting, and it's just like that moment just sucks. I'm sorry, I really hate that moment. And of course, this
I agree. Like Arlen pissing and like a
yeah,
couple other moments.
the second one is
At
Arlen's
least
massive
Arlen
cock.
pissing made me laugh as a prop maker because I see that and I'm like, I I fucking know the manufacturer who makes those fucking dingly dongs.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was, and every episode has a moment like that where like it's Dunk shitting, and it's Arlen's massive cock, and in episode 3, it's a cross between the horse shitting and also the religious zealot knight's losing his eye. Although that one doesn't gross me out as much. They got better
and
after.
and both of those like to me feel like quite fitting. The horse shitting felt like a fitting punchline, even like as crass as it is. The knight losing its eye, it felt like both like also maybe it's just because I'm a prop maker and like a horror fan and all that. Like you were probably desensitized to it for like similar reasons, but like I'm mostly desensitized to it because like I've made so many like prompts and like physical visual effects that are similar to that, and I was looking at that and I was thinking to myself, "Oh, okay, so how much of it is practical? How much of it is CGI?" And I'm like, "Oh man, that's a good bouncy eyeball."
Yeah. The only time where I thought that these like shock gross out jokes actually worked was in episode 5 whenever the Bracken guy like dunks shouting to the crowds, "Are there no true knights among you?" And the Bracken guy stands up and then farts. That works because it's actually not funny. It's quite tragic that these nobles are making fun of Dunk in his hour of need, and but that's like using humor to add to the tragedy of the
Yeah, it's the
situation.
whole bathos sort of thing.
Yeah, 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 and then it makes it all the more satisfying whenever Baylor, of course, bursts in and things like that. And I don't think there really was one in episode no, in episode 5 and episode 6. At that point, the story had gotten so serious that they basically just dropped it at that point. I guess the closest they could say in episode 5 was Arlen's drunken fight with the two police officers to save Dunk while his girlfriend
True,
was
but
dying.
the way it was also framed and lit, like even though like there were like elements of like gore and blood, the way especially the way it was lit and the camera was set up, it didn't feel excessive. Like I understand like why the poked out eye scene might have felt like especially graphic or gruesome to some people because it's like front flat lighting as to where like the entirety of it is very visible and very much in focus. And the Arlen fight scene, like there was a lot more of a mood lighting, and some things were a little bit like not abstracted, obstructed because of the focus, following the character and the weapon instead of like the wound. And so like the only thing that I think could have like ever grossed people out in that scene is like the young lass's neck being opened, and
Mm.
scenes like that, like I don't think like scenes like that need to be shied away from because like that adds to like like the death of Dunk's innocence, like like his first big tragedy, and like him being introduced to like obviously like him and his girlfriend knew like the fact like this is a pretty grim, this is a pretty shitty world, like the kid's forced to grow up fast, but like I'm assuming this is the first time he's seen someone like die in a graphic way, not just pass out, not a corpse that's like been already dead, but someone like actively dying and bleeding out in his arms.
Well, that, and also I like that moment because it also explains where Dunk gets his sense of honor from, and that like I think her name is Reese. The his girlfriend
Rafe, I just remembered.
Rafe. Yeah, thank you, Rafe. Rafe died because she stole and tried to like rob this like police officer or whatever, and look where that got her. And so Dunk, that kind of like scares Dunk into being like, act.
Oh, I didn't think about that, but yes, that's like that is like both his way to like well, not cope with trauma, but like the way the trauma imprinted itself on him
To
to
make him
such a degree. But
follow the like
I
the straight
was
and narrow.
viewed the fact that Arlen saves him as more of a guiding principle. The fact like to protect those who can't stand up for themselves. But you are so right, because because Ruff, oh, not Ruff, Rafe had stolen off of them. It makes total sense for Kid Dunk to have like the trauma of it imprinting on himself, that stealing and anything he may view classically as dishonorable, even if it's like not really like too morally objectionable, even if it's done to survive, but the fact that like this is what is tied to his like major trauma, first like major loss he's actively experienced in life. Like, it makes sense as to where he now has like this amped up sense of honor and dignity, not only like through a moral sense, but also through the prism of like what is classically honorable.
Well, it's also the reason why he kind of wants to steer away from crime, because like, I don't know if you remember this from like episode 1. He's like sitting under the tree and considering his possibilities, and at one point he even like considers becoming an outlaw, like a brigand and whatever. And I think the moment with Wraith is what convinces him, no, like I know where that leads. And it leads with your throat getting slits and you dying in the gutter, basically. Is his outlook. So he wanted something more honorable and whatever. And that's an interesting thing of like, okay, it's questionable how much George knows about this, but like the way that the story tells it and the way that Dunk tells himself is that he has to become a knight because he doesn't have any other option. But really, like if we look at this in like a real life historical sense, and again, it's unclear how much George is aware of this or whatever, and it doesn't really matter for the story. But Dunk actually has plenty of options. There, he could absolutely find work as like a farmhand, for example, because like he's a big guy, big strong guy. That's like the ideal. Like the idea that Dunk would struggle to get work is ridiculous. Like he would absolutely, in the medieval context, farmhands are constantly looking for new men, strong men to help out on their land and things like that. And he could make a decent life from that. But Dunk very clearly doesn't want a decent life. He wants to exceed. He wants a good life. He wants to climb up his station. And that is something that's in the book that kind of gets lost in the show, I think, of the classism angle of it. It's still there. It still exists. Like there is a difference between like peasants, hedge knights, actual knights, royalty, things like that. Lords and things like that. That's still there. But what kind of gets like a little bit more lost is like the cost of things, for example, where and this is a byproduct of the fact that we can't hear Dunk's thoughts in the show, whereas we can in the books. Where like in the books, Dunk is constantly thinking about the cost of things. He was just like, okay, how am I going to afford my armor? I need to sell my horse Sweetfoot, and that'll be able to get me to pay off for half of my armor, and then I need to win one tournament match, and then I could get the reward money from that, and then I can pay off the rest of my armor, and then like I have a permanent set of armor that I own. And then there's another moment where like he wants to give money to Tansel for the puppet show, but he doesn't want to because he wants to save his money, but then he feels guilty about it later on. And like it's a big element in the books of like the cost of stuff. And so that like kind of pays off in the end whenever Steely Pate like makes Dunk his armor and fixes his shield and things like that. And then Dunk is just sort of like, okay, how much is this going to cost? And then Steely Pate goes, for you, a copper. Like that, like he basically does it for free. And like that's the culmination of like Dunk thinking about the cost of stuff, and for Steely Pate to do everything, make Dunk's armor and stuff for what is basically free. Like that's such a big payoff for the audience. Like because at that point they know how much of a sacrifice that is for Steely Pate. That gets a little bit lost in the show. I don't know if that like resonated with you at all. How did you react whenever Steely Pate, the blacksmith, was just sort of like, for you, like a
For
penny.
me, for me, it was the culmination of essentially the common folk accepting Dunk.
Okay, good. I'm glad that carried through. I'm glad that that still like resonated with the audience because there is one scene that I'm kind of annoyed. This is the one scene that I'm the most annoyed got removed from the books to the show. So after Dunk is told that he's gonna have to do the trial by combat, he's on his way to go get armor from Steely Pates, and he's just thinking, "What the fuck am I gonna do? I have got like no friends, no one to help me or whatever." And then as he's walking, like a peasant shakes his hand, and then he walks a bit more, and then a prostitute comes up and kisses him on the cheek, and then he walks a little more, and then a priest comes and blesses him, and he's just like, "What the fuck is happening? Why are all these people suddenly like dapping me up or whatever?" And then the priest says something to the effect of, "Because you're a knight who remembers his vows." Um, and they had never seen that before, like a knight who's actually remembered his vows. And then by the time Dunk gets to Steely Pates, it all gets paid off by him saying, "I'll basically make your armor for free," because the common people love him so much. I was worried
Fuck,
that got
that is genuinely perfect. Because like in that moment, I thought to myself, because like we've already had like instances like in the show specifically of like Dunk like being a fish out of water, both like
yeah, it gets shot on.
around the
Yeah,
common folk and the knights and the royalty, etc. But I thought to myself, man, I really like needed more of like more scenes with like the way the common folk, the regular villagers and the essentially like what we could call as like the plebs class interact with Dunk, because like that scene is such a good payoff with the shield, like the way it is cinematography, the way it's framed in its cinematography, the way the actor delivers it is like that is a comrade right there. But just that like there's like retroactively some context that I wish we would have had, and the scene that you described to me, man, that it and that would have not interrupted the pacing of the show at all.
no, it
Like
wouldn't. It
that.
wouldn't have. So yeah, that's probably my biggest criticism for the show, that they skipped over that scene of the common people really dapping Dunk up and saying, "We love you, Dunk." You know, he's become their local hero, um, by defending Tansel. But to go back to like characters, we were going through them. What about Raymond Fossaway? That's the good green apple Fossaway, guy who becomes Dunk's friend with a really northern accent. That guy.
He's fun. He's fun. To me, he felt like essentially the representative for the mentality of of the regular folk, like kind of a bit of a reality check for Dunk. And I like that is the one character that I like when you said that like we won't see any of them going to season two. That's like something I expected, because like to me he was, while he like and I'm not saying like that it means that he was a bad character at all. To me, he felt more of like a narrative device, a very fitting and very good and like very appropriate narrative device, the way the story unfolds in the show specifically. But it felt to me like he had served out his purpose. He's gonna go have his like a nice idyllic life somewhere, bada bing bada boom, we're done with him. So in my opinion, he nothing groundbreaking, nothing too like outstanding or excellent, but I'd say like good, perfect for what he needs to be in the story.
Yeah. And now we'll move on to his cousin, Stefan Fossaway, who, God, I hate him, but man, that is one of the coolest armors I have ever fucking seen.
Yeah, that armor is phenomenal. Also, that is the like the most obvious turncoat in the history of turncoats.
yeah, well, like the turncoat thing's kind of interesting.
Well executed, genuinely well executed. Because like I personally like didn't believe in his sincerity at all, but I didn't expect him to join the royal side of the fight. I just expected him to not show up at all. Like what I was expecting, especially like what and I thought that was the payoff when when Lionel and the group say like, Ah, that fucker didn't call us, the boy did. And I thought, well, of course, that motherfucker just essentially kind of like hyped Dunk up to proceed not to do anything because I thought that was going to be the payoff. But
Hmm.
for him to, but him joining the opposing side, that's what surprised me. So once again, that is like a very good micro subversion because I expected him to be a turncoat, and I'm assuming the writer, if that's in the book, I'm assuming J.R.R. Martin had accounted for that. And if it's not in the book, if he's one of the characters that's only fleshed out in the show, then I'm assuming that the writers for the show have accounted for that. That yeah, this is gonna be the most obvious turncoat. So we give the audience like this payoff like that like the moment where they think like it's paid off. Oh well, he betrayed our boy by just not fucking doing anything. But then we get an additional layer to it, like where we actually surprise the audience. Of, oh no, he's gonna take part of the execution squad.
Um, they're both more or less the same as they are in the book, as they are in the show. But the show added one more new detail to them, and that is both of them have a supposed hatred to Targaryen and their race, which is called the Valyrians. I don't think that you actually got to hear the term Valyrian yet, but Valyrians are these white-haired. In the books, they have purple eyes as well. White-haired race of people, and that got wiped out, and they moved over to Westeros, and kind of William the Conqueror style. Whenever he conquered over England, they conquered, excuse me, over uh, Westeros and made the Iron Throne. And the main royal family of the Valyrians is the Targaryens, and that's the main royal family of Westeros, and it's the king and all of them. And they have added a detail with the Fossaway cousins for both of them that they hate the fact that they are ruled over by foreigners, by these, as Raymond says, incestuous aliens. Because the Targaryens like to keep it in the family. Um, where there's lots of Targaryens that marry brothers and sisters and things like that.
As most fucking royals do.
Well, like they've taken it to an extreme in this fantasy setting where, like, in real life, you physically can't marry your brother and sister that much because the children that you will produce they can't reproduce really. But they've took it so for like in real life historical history, it was mostly cousins that married each other. Um, but like in this fantasy world, it's much more often we're brothers and sisters. Except what's interesting is that while that is the case for most of Targaryen history, it very recently, they've started marrying outside of their family. Like, it's funny that this is the moments where they decide to add the whole like, we hate these incestuous foreigners on ruling over us. Whenever this is the moments in their history where they're actually the least incestuous. Baelor is married to someone outside of his family. Maekar is married to someone outside of his family. It's funny. Um, well, we'll get to the kind of racism dynamic whenever we get to Arryn and Tansel, but like it's funny that the Targaryens are being criticized for this now, whenever this is actually them at their least incestuous and their least powerful as well, because um, this got brought up briefly. The Targaryens used to have dragons, and that's what made them kings in the first place, and now they don't. I'll not tell you why they don't anymore, because maybe you'll want to watch House of the Dragon. But all you need to know is that Targaryens, like Baelor, like Maekar, they used to have dragons, and now they don't.
Copy that. Copy that. Does this take place alongside the Song of Ice and Fire narrative, or is it like sometime after or before it?
So like in the Song of Ice and Fire narrative, the Iron Throne and the Kingdom of Westeros, the Seven Kingdoms, were established by this guy called Aegon the Conqueror, who Egg is named after, and he's supposed to be a reference to William the Conqueror in real life history. But Aegon Targaryen, the Conqueror, with his sister wives and their three dragons, took over the entire continent. and their family grew and grew and grew until they had loads of dragons. They had, I think, about like at the peak of their power, they had like 19 dragons, and then they had a gigantic civil war called the Dance of the Dragons, um, which is sort of supposed to be like their equivalent to the Anarchy. If you know about English royal family history, the Anarchy. Um, and so at the start of the War of the Dance of the Dragons, the Targaryen family had 19 dragons or so, and by the time the war was done, they had 3 left. And by the time Duncan Hegg happens, the dragons are all dead. I'll not spoil why, but the main takeaway from this is that this is actually the Targaryens at their least powerful right at the moment.
Cannot be bad. Cannot be bad.
Which kind of explains why the public are so eager to kind of like challenge people like Aryan. Like whenever Aryan kills the horse in the tourney. Speaking of which, we should probably talk about Aryan. Get a picture of him. What did you think of Aryan as a villain?
Surprisingly enough, like I think had I known more about the show going into it, I would have expected him to be way more of a cartoonishly hateable twat. But in my opinion, that is the like at least also like knowing like real world examples like both like personally and just out like outside of that both like through the news through other people and also like knowing people like that personally the spoiled brat kind of person uh that is a very realistic twat right there.
What's interesting? So I'll cover a few more things about Aryan that I find quite interesting. One, like I mentioned that I like 3 jokes in this show. Aryan actually has the third and final joke that actually made me laugh. It's whenever he's cracking the nuts with the back of his dagger, and one of the nuts skids off the table, and he snaps his fingers and points at the Lord Ashford, and Lord Ashford has to crawl on the ground and get the nut. I thought that was quite funny. But what's interesting is so George doesn't talk about race all that much in A Song of Ice and Fires. He does have opinions about race. And if you want to know his opinion about race, I highly recommend you read his other books that aren't in the Ice and Fire universe, because that's where he like gets more into it. He doesn't get into it that much in A Song of Ice and Fire. This right here is probably the most blatant example that he does get into it in this show and in this book, where we have a blonde-haired, he has purple eyes in the books. We have this blonde-haired teenager, arrogance, royal aristocrat teenager, who literally named Aryan, who attacks a tanned girl, literally named Tanzel, and you know it's a bit of the race dynamic there, and I wonder if that got well. I'll ask you about that. Do you think I think that got a little bit buried under everything else going on in the show? Did you pick up on that when you first saw it?
I did not pick up on the fact that Tanzel's name is also is also like one of the I keep forgetting like what's the proper archetype name, one of the speaking names, one of the essentially the types of names that like either reveal something about the character or something about like the theme of the character. But like yeah, the fact that Aryan is literally like an Aryan like person, like white supremacist archetype. I did catch on to that, and a part of me like I think had I not been a Star Wars fan, I would have thought, well, no, it's it's kind of like too like on the nose. But like given the fact that I'm a fucking Star Wars fan, and we got characters like that are named like Savage Opress as a as in Savage Oppression,
Or Darth
I'm like, no,
Sidious,
no, this yeah,
Insidious,
exactly.
yeah.
Like I'm very much used to that kind of thing, and to me, um especially given the way that the show is written, given the way that the narrative is written, given the presence of these characters. I think the show has bought itself enough of a leeway to do something, to say some things in a more of an on the nose kind of matter, as to where he is the most caricaturized of the aristocracy, and I think it works. I think it works because they don't overplay their hand. They first of all, he acts in a very real way, as a lot of like spoiled rich brats do, especially like me having gone to school. That's so like more of like kind of a that was like a little bit fancier, where like most of my peers like were out of like way more well-off families than myself. I've seen people act in that way, if not like even more detestable, as to where I'm like, yeah, them rich crackers do act that way. And the fact that he is the most characterized character, and like everyone else feels like taking a notch back, it works. It works. Had like all the royals acted the way he does, even if it would have been true to life to an extent, it would have felt like from like, which is like funny given the times we live in. We live in the times where in a lot of instances reality is more absurd, and like more absurd than fiction, as to where like had it been written in a fictional setting in a book, like it would have been called out for being too blatant, too on the nose. So it does work for me in the show. It works very much for me, especially given the fact that like that he plays off of the rest of his family, who are all taken a notch back, and there's like layers to other members of his family, as to where, in my opinion, the show does by itself place to introduce this absolutely irredeemable prick whose naming convention is also very very George Lucasy, very racist McRacist, man.
Well, like that part that I mentioned is pretty much the only like times we even like touch on like racism, and also and the reason why I bring it up is that it's also interesting that they're bringing it up with the fossil ways. Like I said earlier, where like remember, it's interesting to note that well, yes, like we could say Targaryens are the whites or whatever. It's you also remember the fact that these are foreigners. Like the Targaryens are foreigners, but it's also interesting, something that isn't mentioned in the show, but I'll bring it up here. Um, is that so Tanzil's culture is Dornish, and she is and Dorne is like the southern hemisphere kind of Mediterranean style cultures of Westeros, the deep south of the continent, where some people like have slightly more tan skin. But Aryen's grandmother, Maekar's no, sorry, not Maekar. His grandfather's wife, she's Dornish, which makes Aryan 1/8 Dornish, or sorry, no, 1/4 Dornish. So it's interesting to that's an interesting like tidbit to bring up, that like he's actually partly attacking his own race, and the only actually native Westerosi race that he has any connection to, because the Valyrians are from another continent altogether. But Dorne is his only like native tie to Westeros, and it's interesting that he's attacking a Dornish person there. But there's also another element to consider, where like not I'm kind of getting tangenting and getting a little bit too into the reads of the wider plot, where actually there's a difference between like sandy Dornish and salty Dornish and stone Dornish, where like those are three different sub races amongst Dorne, where one's very dark skin and one's very pale skin. Where like for example the Danes are Dornish, but they've got like very pale skin, and also the purple eyes of Valyrians, things like that. But that's tangenting a bit too much and getting too into the reads. To come back to Aryan and like his story arc, what's interesting is he's not whenever he attacks Tansel, he's not actually mad at anything Tansel particularly does. He's mad that the dragon in the little puppet show, well, it's not little, it's quite a big puppet show, is killed. And the other characters talk about how Arian sees himself as a dragon. He actually believes he's a dragon, and that he's partly frustrated. He sees it as like a big tragic thing that the dragons have died. And remember, the dragons dying is a fairly recent thing. So like, to give kind of I don't it's difficult for me to like write a real world example, but let's just hypothetically say that the brown bear went extinct, right? And some foreigner had a puppet show where in Moscow where someone kills a brown bear, right? And the brown bear is the national animal of Russia and things like that. And someone would take that as an insult. That's how Arian views it, which is an interesting dynamic. If that makes sense to you.
In a way, yes, but also I think
Did I get that right? By the way, the
I,
brown bear is the national animal of Russia. Is it the brown bear?
yes, it is.
Okay, right. I
Like
thought
we have a few. We have like an
I thought
Amurian
maybe it's another type of
tiger.
bear. That's the reason why I asked. All right. I knew it
Yeah,
was a
we have.
bear, but
Yeah, it's one of them. I don't care much about like the semantics of it because like we have several of those. We have the bear, we have the Amurian tiger that was going extinct for a while, but then was luckily preserved.
all right.
And I think something else. I think there are some birds, but
An eagle.
like I think there's got to be some bird because there's a lot of birds that are like only found here and in some Balkan countries, but that's mostly because like this mostly because our country just spans most of the continent, so like we fucking usurped a lot of the bird habitats.
Yeah. But so that's the reason why like Arian gets pissed. To move on later with his character. We talked about the moment whenever like they're discussing the trial by combat. Let's skip ahead to the actual trial by combat. His fucking armor, man. His insane Shadow the Hedgehog looking ass skull armor.
And that's like you've told you like you previously messaged me like how tragic that the characters you hate most have the most dapper armor,
Well,
and
that
I
was
will
half a
reiterate
joke
this.
because actually all of the armor in the show is fucking amazing. This might be
It really is. The prop department fucking outdid themselves. Like even something that like is supposed to look like fake in universe, like the puppet show, so well fucking done. Like goddamn, like the maker in me is just like gawking at it.
mhm. Oh, to tangent off into the puppet show briefly, that's probably like the biggest thematic like symbolism in the whole show, where the puppet show that they're depicting in the story is a story called Florian the Fool, where it's this unorthodox story about a knight who started off as a jester and became a knight, and obviously in the play in the puppet show, Tansel, who plays the princess, uh Jonquil, her name is, um she's sort of like the love interest for the play. She says something to the line to the puppet Florian. You're a knight and a fool, and he says, "Sweet lady, all men are knights and fools to those they love." And by the way, I'm so glad you finally get to hear that line. Do you remember I used it in one of my videos? That's one of my favorites.
Yeah, like that immediately gave me flashbacks.
Yeah,
Where he said, "Milady, all men are fools and all men are knights."
all men are fools and all men are knights for those that they love. Which like man, it just goes so. George is such a fucking beautiful writer. Like that is like one of the most romantic things I've ever heard written. But anyway, the puppet show was great, and also it's very thematic, and that metaphorically, obviously, Dunk is Florian. He is a fool for getting involved into all of this, but he's also a knight, and that's the big overarching moral message of this story. Where like Dunk is lying about being a knight. He's not actually a knight, but on principle, on chivalry, on his morals, he is the truest knight. He is the pinnacle of knighthood and chivalry in this story.
Hell yeah, and he does gain victory against the Dragon Royals.
Well, yeah, it doubles up in that like Aryan. It's a story of a knight fighting against a dragon. Aryan is a dragon, and also Aryan is a knight in the sense that he has been knighted. He is Sir Aryan, or well, he's
and he is the
he's a
most
prince, really, but
dishonorable motherfucker
yeah,
you can find, being like the perfect foil narrative speaking for Dunk.
and Stefan is a knight, and he's dishonorable, and also we get back to Sir Arlen, who Dunk says isn't a very good knight, but to Dunk, he was the best example of a knight that he's ever seen. So, you know, it keeps on coming back. Knights are fools, fools are knights, men are fools. You know, it's just like what a bit. It's this
Yeah,
whole
very beautiful motif.
yeah. It's this whole idea of like the fantastical idea that we have ourselves being criticized and then taken apart, but then pursuing that fantastical element anyway. And that's like the big moral message of like, yes, you should not take these big fantastical legends that we talk about ourselves with and how we kind of like grandiose ourselves with, and you should criticize that. But once you have criticized it, you should pursue it anyway.
I'd say I'd say the theme is more of do not chase the grandeur of the myth, but do chase the earnest core of what's inside of it.
Yeah. All right. I think that's everything with. Oh wait, no, sorry. One more thing on Aryan that I want to talk about. So, this is quite an interesting thing with the rivalry between Dunk and Aryan, where this is kind of a reversal of a classic David and Goliath story, where Goliath in this situation is Dunk, who is the big fucking unit, um, like the giant dude. He's the underdog, whereas Aryan, who I believe the actor is like 5'6" in real life, the short
Fucking short stack.
the short king, is David, and it's quite interesting, and we should tap into the David and Goliath parallels. Where like, so I have been thinking about this lately, especially after I saw A Knights of the Seven Kingdom and after I read the book. There is a trope that I've noticed as of late that has kind of pissed me off, and it's what I have coined the term the anti-David and Goliath story, and that is whenever people get too fixated on the fact that in the initial David and Goliath story, it's that Goliath is big and David is small. That's too much of a reductive look on the initial story. And what happens is people make what I call the anti-David and Goliath story, where they have these situations where they will have a small character, the protagonist, fighting off a big character, and making the smaller guy be the underdog. But if you actually like think about it or look at it at all, in reality, the bigger guy, the smaller guy has the advantage, and isn't an underdog, whereas the bigger guy isn't. So like, I think the easiest way to explain this is with an example, of like an anti David and Goliath story that I was looking at recently and it pissed me off. So in Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban, I would say this might be the worst moment in the books for Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban. It's a Quidditch match. So right out of the gate, I'm not too fond of the Quidditch matches in Harry Potter. I think they're quite boring. But in Prisoner of Azkaban, Harry gets this new broomstick called the Firebolt, and this thing is like ridiculous. It's the best broomstick ever, basically. And whenever Harry gets into the matches against Slytherin, JK tries to make it into kind of a David and Goliath story, where Harry is small guy, the underdog, and the Slytherins are a bunch of big 7th year units and Malfoy. And in the context of the story, they're trying to frame it in a way where it's the David and Goliath story, where like Harry's the underdog and Malfoy is Goliath. But really, if you think about it, because they've got like bigger students and they end up cheating in the match and things like that. But if you really think about it for like more than a second, Harry isn't the underdog here. The Slytherins are the underdog here because Harry has basically done the equivalent of bringing a Formula One race car to his high school racing match where the other students are in fucking go-karts. Where like Malfoy actually isn't the Nepo baby in the situation. Harry is, where he is bought is bought for him this like the best broom ever. And like, yeah, the Slytherins have gotten bigger students, so the Slytherins are cheating, but like actually think about it, what the fuck else are the Slytherins supposed to do? We're like it's really bad. It's a pretty bad chapter, and I kind of hate it because like it's basically a big circle jerk for Harry. And that's an example of what I call an anti David and Goliath story, where it's the illusion that the small guy is the underdog, but he actually isn't. You see this all the time, especially in video games and things like that, where the big guy is the actually one with the disadvantage. No, and
It's essentially like the whole, oh my god, Batman fighting Superman or Batman fighting all these villains. He's the underdog. This motherfucker has inexplicable MacGyver powers to the nth degree.
he can gun kryptonites in every angle, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Like that's why, being a major Batman fan, I do not want Batman to be too overprepared. I do want Batman to like be extremely prepared at like a certain point in his career, but still, whenever he's faced with new challenges, I want to actively see how he handles this in the story. The writer shouldn't feel, oh my god, it's gonna be emasculating for Batman to lose. No, usually the best Batman stories when he's up against a new foe, be that Killer Croc, be that Bane, be that the Court of Owls, is when he is brutally beaten down, but he refuses to go down. He's literally, he's Randy. He's like, I ain't hear no bell. And he keeps figuring out, he keeps hitting the wall up until he learns how to break it. I don't want Batman to immediately break it because at that point, no, he's not the underdog. If he has, like, only Adam West, only kooky, funny Batman are allowed to be overprepared because that's part of the joke. But if you want to like seriously tell me, oh my god, my Batman is so cool because he can like it's the whole like kids fighting on the playground of like, no, you didn't hit me because I have like this super magical armor, and then I get to kill you because my super magical armor like immediately incinerates you on impact. No, I don't like that.
That's I'm so glad you brought that up. That's a way better example of what I'm talking about than the Harry Potter example. I'm so like Batman and Superman. That's such a brilliant example of like what is Clark's advantage actually in that battle if Bruce can just spam kryptonite everywhere? Like what can Clark do in that situation then?
Exactly, and it also like paints Superman as dumb and oblivious. Like, okay, Batman has his contingency plans. Do you think Clark Kent, the professional reporter, the man who can like move and think at incredible speeds, do you not think he wouldn't prepare, especially given the fact that his main villain is Lex Luthor, the conniving super genius billionaire? So you don't think Superman has any experience fighting super ultra prepared wealthy geniuses? Like,
Yeah.
man, that's just also like giving Superman a bad rep.
Yeah, but anyway, but let's not tangent too much away from Night of the Seven Kingdoms. Back to Night of the Seven Kingdoms. This story is almost like a criticism of this trope that I'm talking about, where like throughout the entire story, Dunk is at a disadvantage, and even in the battle itself, in the big tourney, in the trial by seven itself, Aryan is obviously the better fighter of the two. Where like if you're watching them and they're sword fighting, Aryan's doing a bunch of twirls and like can actually get past Dunk's guard and things like that. The only time whenever Dunk gets the advantage in the fight is whenever he starts following Lionel's advice in the first episode of be tall, be big. That's your advantage. That's what you're built here to do. That's what the gods made you to do, to be big. And this is more spelled out in the books. I think this bit kind of got a bit lost where in the books Dunk thinks Aryan can beat Sir Duncan the Tall, but he can't beat Dunk of Flea Bottom. And Dunk starts using kind of like dirty tactics they used whenever he was like pouring in the fights and fighting in the streets, where like he's tackling Aryan and then battering on him. I think that gets a little bit lost in the show. I don't know how much you were able to pick up on that.
I think the reason that kind of gets lost in the show is because we already see Aryan implementing like very dirty tactics, like aiming for the horse's neck. Essentially, like we have
yeah,
examples of Aryan hitting below the belt, and if Dunk beats him by hitting him below the belt, it would have felt kind of like
whatever.
it
Like
wouldn't have yeah it wouldn't have been narratively satisfying. So I'm glad that the show goes for more of like Dunk just tanks as much damage as he can, and he tries to use his size. He tries to pin Aryan to the ground. He tries to overpower him, not through skill, but through sheer
just keep bashing his
difference
face because you're bigger than
yeah,
him.
exactly, through the sheer difference in weight class.
Yeah, yeah. And then like it is so satisfying that like Dunk can actually go and use his actual proper advantage because like to go back to the David and Goliath story, this is what I was talking about earlier where people only fixate on David being small and Goliath being big. It's not just that. Goliath is like what the at the time the greatest warrior in history. He's encased in this gigantic scale armor that covers his entire body, bar his face because because there's like a whole like a gap in his helmet for his eyes, and that's where David shoots his sling. Like he has this gigantic sword and spear that's several times taller than David. And David's a teenager. He is the youngest son of a farmer. He's never fought anything more than like a fox trying to eat his sheep or whatever, or like a jackal is probably like the biggest thing David has ever fought in his life. That's the actual underdog versus, it's this little teenage boy going up against what is the equivalent of like a tank. And like people miss that. They just fixate on it being small.
Bomb versus one coughing baby.
Yeah, literally, they just fixate on him, just like small guy versus big guy. It's not just that, and so it's so satisfying. Where like it's this gigantic payoff of we see Dunk getting shit on for being tall, keeps on smacking his head on the ceilings and the roofs of doors and things like that. And I know big dudes, and like it can be tough sometimes being a big guy. Like bigotry towards big people, bigotry, if you will, is a genuine thing.
Oh yeah, it is like a lot of like.
You're kind of a big
And
dude, aren't you?
not only when it comes to like things like clothes, but also like just spaces. Especially like it's hard for people like that and with like basic like restrooms, etc. Like at least now it's like somewhat more accommodating, but not too long ago. Andre the Giant didn't live like that long ago. Like it was literally like a few decades back. The
Mm.
dude could not properly go to the toilet because it just wouldn't work. So he had to do it in the bathtub, to his unending discomfort and shame, and yeah, just because everything is like in the modern age, and like like I can start ranting about capitalism for hours, but like it's just not apt for today's discussion.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
Keep
just
it
because
to the
everything
show.
is so standardized, everything's like commodified to like this in quote unquote perfect standard. People who don't fall into that standard are gonna suffer because of that, because the structure does not accommodate them.
Also worth mentioning that Peter Claffey, the actor who plays Dunk, is about 6'6" feet tall, somewhere about that. Dunk in the books is 7 feet tall. So he's not just big; he's freakishly big. Um, so like to get back to the fight and all of this, he people have pointed out that this almost feels like a Rocky film or a wrestling match, in a lot of ways, and it's just so satisfying for Dunk to overpower Arian despite all of his skill, just keep on wailing on him with bashing him with the shield, dragging him through the mud, and then picking him up and then making him say that he retracts his accusation to the audience. And like, oh, it's so great. It's so great. What a great villain. What a great hero. What a great story.
And also, I know it is. I know I may be reading too much into it, or maybe it's right on the money, but to me that is the victory of the Soviet proletariat against the fucking Nazis. That's the way I read it. You can't tell me otherwise.
Nah, I don't know about that. But anyway, uh, what's any more characters to go? I guess we could briefly talk about Tansel. What did you think of Tansel?
Honestly, really enjoyed her. Her scenes, especially like the puppet shows. Like I am a sucker for stuff like that. So to me, it's immediately like, oh my god, okay, I'm gonna be rewatching this over and over again because I love prop making, I love stage plays, all of that, and she plays her part perfectly. Genuinely, such lovely scenes with her, such a lovely character, such a lovely setting, such a lovely location. Like if it was like a video game or something, that would be like the hub, the location I would return to more than anything.
I um I think she's cute. And also I think it's interesting, so I should probably bring this up. The main inspiration for the story is a film called Ivanhoe. And if you want to watch more films about like knights and tourneys and things like that, I highly recommend Ivanhoe. It's a good film, and it's a film that George loves a lot. Um, and also A Knight's Tale is also very good if you want more stories like this. But in Ivanhoe, um, the main knight guy has to fight for the favor of this princess, and then they get together in the end. What's very interesting about Tansel and Dunk is that they don't get together in the end. I don't know if they say it here in the show, but in the book, the last we ever hear of Tansel is that she paints Dunk's shield, leaves it behind with Steely Pate, and then Steely Pate says something to the effect of she was crying as she was running away, like because she's trying to get away because she thinks she's gonna get killed by Arian, um, and the royal family. So her and her puppet gang are ditching town and kind of leaving leaving Dunk to take the bulk of it. But Steely Pate brings up the fact that she was in tears at the fact that Dunk is going to take the fall for all of this. And but it is interesting at the fact that in the end, Dunk doesn't get the girl in the end. He's fighting.
And I am glad because that would have felt that would have diminished like what he did as a knight. That would have diminished like him stepping up for to protect an innocent soul, and would have felt
Yeah,
like, oh, I only care to protect this person because I have romantic feelings for them, because I view them as a prize to be won.
Yes,
That
exactly.
just wouldn't sit right with me, narrative speaking. So I am very glad they didn't go for it. They didn't go for the easy option of like, woohoo, he did the good thing, and because of that, he gets the girl.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. He didn't. He defended Tansel because it was the right thing to do. He didn't do it for pussy,
Yeah,
you know.
exactly, exactly. But if they ended up together, it just kind of like would have muddied it up. Like this, like on all fronts, just delivers the message of like what being a knight, what knighthood is to Dunk in the best way possible. Because otherwise, just it would have felt cheap story wise if they ended up together.
By the way, I'm just gonna rip this band-aid off right now. We're never seeing Tansel again unless they do something uh, different from the books in the show. Um,
And as much as it sucks, given the fact that I love these puppet shows, I'm fine with that. I'm fine
yeah,
with that. I'll just be rewatching those scenes on repeat.
yeah. Any other characters? I guess. Do you have any more thoughts on Maykard? We kind of covered everything, and when we were talking about it earlier.
Up until episode 6, up until his discussion with Dunk, I felt he was like a little bit too flat. Up until like the post funeral discussion he had with Dunk, I felt he was too flat of a character, and to me I was like, okay, it kind of makes sense. His son is kind of like this the stand-in for a racial supremacist, for like kind of like a Nazi supervillain in this setting. So like it makes sense for his father to also be like a bit of a two-dimensional scumbag. But I am glad because like from what you've said, there is and obviously given the fact that that Hedge Knight is a novel, I'm assuming there's just more attention given to him, that he is a priori more of a fleshed out character in the book. So I am glad to see that episode 6 definitively told us that while yes he is an uptight royal asshole, he is not devoid of dimensionality. Like there is this like paternal grief at like failing at being like a good example for his boys, and there's like also actual sincerity to be found in him, even though he is still quite a privileged classist asshole. He's probably not thinking about like the more like global issues. He's probably not as down to earth as Baylor was, and maybe it's not something he will ever achieve. But there is still like this dimensionality to him that kind of grounds him. Not as much as Baylor. Maybe he's not as good of a fit to be to lead people as much as Baylor would have been, but there is actual now depth to the character. So I hope given the fact that much like you mentioned, there is a key moment omitted from the first season that would have humbled him, that was omitted from the show. I am keen on seeing how they develop his character in season 2, if they do the suspected thing of having two subplots at a time.
Well, I don't know if it's suspected. That's just my theory of uh of making him not consent to Egg going with Dunk. That was just my idea. That I like, okay, maybe they're doing that because they want to bring him back for the next season for more character developments because hmm. All right. How should probably get into this side of the conversation. I'll not spoil anything that's in the other two books, the other two Duncan Eggs books. But how much do you want me to spoil just like the lore and history of like after the books? Because it is going to be spoiled to you if you watch Game of Thrones. Because Duncan, I don't know if we even mentioned this. Duncan Egg takes place 90 years before Game of Thrones, so you're gonna know what happens by proxy of like they're gonna talk about it in the history and things like that. So I'll not spoil anything about like the other two novels, but do you want me to tell you and frankly, there isn't much to spoil. But do you want me to tell you where these characters, lore-wise, are gonna go?
So I'm assuming Aegon does inevitably become a king and die as to the dubiously trustworthy bullshit witch lady's prediction.
Yeah, yeah, he does. So he is nicknamed Aegon the Unlikely, where right now, as it stands, Egg is ninth in line in the throne, where the current king is Daron the Good, who you didn't see in this show, but he's the current king. And I'll not say how, but he dies, and then after that, it's his grandson Valar, who is Baelor's son, who you briefly got to see. Actually, let's stop for a moment. What did you think of Valar? He is the kind of teenage boy who Dunk meets during Baelor's funeral, and Valar asks him, "Why did the gods take my dad and leave you?"
I really like Dunk's answer to that. Like that is very much in line with him as a character. Can't say much about Baylor's son, given the fact that there isn't much to him as a character as of yet.
yeah.
But that was a very very well written interaction. Like outside of that, I can't define the lad as a character because there isn't much to him.
Mm-hmm. But not to spoil it too much, but like Valar is not long for this world, and so it skips over to Valar, and then they go over to Baelor's brother, who is Ares, who we don't. I think he gets mentioned once in the show.
Yeah, he gets mentioned. Gets mentioned. The only reason I remember his name is because it sounds like Ares from
Ares, the god of war. Yeah. Except it's spelled Arys. I think there's a Y in it. I remember that. It's spelled differently from from the Greek way of saying it, but you are supposed to say Ares. So Ares becomes king and eventually dies without children. I'll not say hi. And then it's Maekar. Maekar is now king. And Maekar dies, I'll not say hi. And then it moves on to Daron. Daron dies, I'll not say hi. Then Arion can't be king, I'll not say hi. Aemon can't be king, I'll not say hi. They skip over his daughters. And then finally we get
to... can't be king because our boy fucking removed his nutsack.
No, he's not a eunuch. I know a lot of people were asking about that. Like, whenever Dunk stabbed him into the ground, they're like, can he have children now? No, he hit his leg. He didn't actually hit him in the nuts.
God,
he hit his leg.
God damn it! I hope he got castrated.
No, Arion does have children.
God fucking damn it.
He has one son, and they skip over. And then there's a big council had about, okay, who's going to be king? Is it going to be Egg or is it going to be Arion's son, who is in another country? Like Arion has his first son while he's in exile. Arion's going to. I don't know if you picked up on that. Maekar said that after all of this, Arion is going into exile.
Yeah, he did tell Dunk that he would send him away.
Yeah, he's going to send him away, and that's where. While he's away, he's going to get married and have a son. And so they have a big council to decide who's going to be king, and they end up deciding that Egg is going to be king. And Egg is going to make Dunk in charge of his royal bodyguard, the King's Guard. And Dunk is going to be remembered as the greatest knight in history, basically. I'll not say how, I'll not say why, but in Game of Thrones, whenever they're listing, whenever characters like Jon and Jaime and things like that are like going off of like who are the best knights, they always list Dunk as number one. Like Dunk eventually becomes the prime example of what a good knight is.
Oh hell yeah!
Yeah. And yeah, that's most of. You could look into, and maybe we'll talk about more about the extensive lore, but that's generally what you need to know. for now, at least lore-wise. Any other characters to cover? I suppose Daron, the drunk one. Any thoughts on him?
While he is still a privileged asshole, he's the kind of harmless fucking asshole. Baylor is like the good apple. His brother, I keep forgetting, Malor or Makar,
Makar,
right?
Makar. Yeah.
Makar. Um, troubled, not down to earth, kind of humanized asshole. Arian, I
As a psycho,
I
yeah.
can yeah, I can speak at length. Let's just say fucking Nazi super villain. Aegon, precious little bald cinnamon bun, and Dagon. He's there. He's the red-haired stepchild.
Well, what's interesting about Daron is that he has prophetic dreams. He can he has dreams of the future. He talks about it briefly with Dunk. I don't know if you're able to pick up on this. Daron mentions he tells Dunk about his dream, where he says, "I had a dream where you were alive, but a dead dragon was lying in front of you." And then metaphorically, that's supposed to be Baelor, where that dream foreshadows Baelor's death, or Baelor the dragon is going to die and Dunk is going to live.
Yup, and I was when it clicked with me that Darren is one of the royal sons, because I remembered what he told Dunk. He was afraid, like, he saw him in a dream. He's afraid that he's gonna kill him. And during the trial of seven, I was thinking, all right, that prick is gonna die. Arian is gonna die. We're all gonna be happy. He still wins, and I'm like, okay, who's gonna die? Or was that like kind of like a metaphorical death? Was like defeat? No, was like defeat the kind of like metaphorical death. But no, then Baylor dies, and I'm like, God fucking damn it.
Yeah. Uh, One last thing about but we're still the last note about Baelor and Maekar and their children. What's interesting is Baelor is actually so we should talk about their father, the current king, Daron. Daron is widely regarded as a good king. He's all about like compromise and things like that. He married a Dornish lady and brought Dorne into the realm. And so both Baelor and Maekar are both half Dornish. And as I said to you with Tansel, Dorne is sort of like black haired, kind of dark skinned, or sometimes tan skinned people. And the Valyrians are like albinos, essentially. And that becomes an issue with Baelor because whenever Baelor is born, he has the black hair of a Dornish person, whereas and looks more Dornish than he does Valyrian. Like he has white hair, but that white hair is just from age. He's supposed to have completely black hair. Um, Whereas Maekar and his sons, they look like Valyrians, and there's like and also like you can even kind of see this with Valar as well. Where like have a look at this picture of Valar real quick. You'll notice where Valar has dark hair, except for this one white patch on his head, to show that yeah he is part Valyrian, and like it's interesting that Valar really wants to put that in display. Like he wants to show off his Valyrian side, quite a bit, as little as it is. Whereas, funny enough, Egg really resents his Valyrian side because it reminds him so much of Aryan. And his father, I suppose. But not so much Daron, because Daron just has kind of like blonde hair instead of white. And it's also worth mentioning that, like, I think Daron, for the most part, is a good dude, and, like, minor spoiler, Egg goes on to name one of his children Daron. So, obviously, Egg seems to like Daron quite a bit.
Yeah, well, much like I said, he doesn't seem to be harmful. He's like a harmless drunk. He's
Yeah.
like throwing his life away, but he's like not actively hurting anyone.
Yeah. So, like, that's interesting elements, and, like, some people have like theorized of like maybe Baelor's death and Valar's death weren't really as much accidents as we think they are, and like, were they trying to set it up where the more Valyrian looking family members, Maekar's branch of the family, um, continues as the royal family members, and like it's something to kind of keep in the mind of your back of your head. We're like we're not getting into like conspiracies and various fan theories and things like that, and that's like welcome to the fan base of Song of Ice and Fire, where Song of Ice and Fire has one of the most insane fan bases ever, where we're just drowning in fan theories and possibilities and conspiracies of things like that. Of like, this is just something to keep in mind in the back of your head. That's perhaps Baelor and Valar's deaths weren't quite accidents as we think they are, or unfortunate turns of fates. But I'll leave you. I would kind of want you to leave. That's what I wanted to do for the most part of this conversation. I didn't want to influence you too much. I wanted you to have your own raw opinions about the whole thing. Now, any last stuff? Any like last points, last characters? Oh, we should go for briefly do a fire round of Dunk's crew. We did Lionel, but we'll do some of the smaller side characters. The religious zealot guy with the one eye. He didn't have much interaction, but what do you think of him?
Given the fact that you've mentioned that we don't see any of these guys going forward, I can't say much, but I suppose it's like get like a decent. Well, it's a good like a little sprinkle of world building to show off the some kookier characters. Essentially, like add a little bit more to the lore and how he refers to himself as we, whether or not
Yeah.
he has a split identity or he believes that like the deities speak through him. That's like that's pretty interesting. That's an interesting concept that I would like to see if I'm to delve into the rest of the franchise, the rest of the setting. That's something like that would be interesting to see explored more thoroughly.
Robin Riesling, that's his name. But yeah, I'm glad you picked up on him calling himself we. I think I interpret that as that, yeah, I think the latter half of what you said is probably the right of it, where he believes that the Seven, who are the gods of the Andals, the Westerosi, southern Westerosi people. He believes that the gods speak through him as like their avatar, in a way. Other character is that you probably even forgot about this dude was even in there. I don't blame you, Robin Riesling. The only really
the guy who got his leg broken.
Yeah, the guy goes. Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing that he got his leg broken. Where and
all I'll say is I like the fact that he seems to have his own garrison of troops because they harbor his insignia and the same color scheme. So to me, he's Commander Cody because he get like white and orange armor and like he gets some white and orange troops.
Yeah, like the heraldry in A Song of Ice and Fire is always kind of crazy because they got like dragons and eagles and wolves and things like that. But Ronald Riesling probably has the most normal coat of arms out of any character ever. It's just I'll send you a picture of his coat of arms. It's just a bunch of triangles, red triangles on a white background. It's the most normal. But
nice. For some reason, wait a second. Oh, or is that another knight who had like white and orange armor, and there was like a garrison of like white and orange armor troops?
Oh, so that was Sir Ashford, who is the brother of the lady whose birthday this was, Gwyn Ashford. And they're at Ashford Castle. This is all taking place at Ashford Castle, and their coat of arms is an orange background with a white chevron and a white sun on it. And there was a brief plot where the castellan of House Ashford wants Dunk to take a dive in one of the jousts uh, and rig some bets.
I remember that.
Yeah, so that they can pay off this big party. And man, pour one out for poor Gwyn Ashford. Where like this was all of her. This was her birthday. This was like
It was supposed to be her day, and then like
yeah,
all this
yeah. It's her
bullshit
sweet.
happened.
It's her sweet 16. She just wanted to wear a pretty dress. She wanted to like have a nice time, watch some jousting, maybe have like some nice things to eat. And these fucking like three people died, and the one of them was the prince of the son of the king, and heir to the throne. And and I do like how at the end, this is a new thing that they add in the show. Like Gwyn doesn't even get a name in the books, but they have a moment where Gwyn confronts Dunk in the last episode, and she says, "I don't blame you for ruining my birthday." You know?
That was very nice.
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
like to me that was a very wholesome scene, but also like the way the actress acted it out. I like that there's like this like quick bluntness, like quick like a wooden bluntness that reads as like she's being sincere, but you see that there's this underlying motherfuckers. You ruined my birthday.
yeah. You ruined my birthday. And finally, the last character that we're going to talk about, the fan favorites, the Chad, the Boba Fett of this franchise, Beesbury, the guy with the honey-colored mustache who was in a bee coffin and who died off screen. um, Humphrey
That's
Beesbury.
beautiful.
Humphrey Beesbury, that's his name. Humphrey
You
Be.
know, I completely forgot that he fucking was part of the team. So like when the battle is over and they tell him, oh my god, like Beesbury and the Mr. Broken Leg guy are dead. I'm like, oh no, Beesbury, he was my favorite character. Like it reminded me of that scene from, you know, like in Resident Evil 4 when like Leon, like we get this mode of like, oh, he's about to be rescued on a helicopter, and like this, I keep forgetting the name of the fucking pilot. Like let's say like John McJohn Face, and Leon's like, yo, John McJohn Face, I know you, you my good fucking co-worker. We're gonna go for drinks. Yeah, you my comrade at jail. And John McJohn Face gets fucking bazooka, and I'm like, no, John, he was my favorite character.
He really is, he like Humphrey Beesbury, people have pointed out, is the closest to a Star Wars character that we're ever gonna get in this franchise. Where, you know, it's like Glub Shitto. Like, you know,
It really
yeah,
is. It
we're
really is. And
we're
and the whole thing with the funeral also like adding like more to the fucking lore. Like he's got kind of an eccentric design, even though like he's barely seen. He's got an eccentric funeral. When are we getting Beesbury, the Seven Kingdoms story?
like it's hilarious how the the you know, we got like factions where they're depicted by dragons and wolves and eagles and things like that, and then Humphrey is like, I'm a part of the bee family, and my main claim to fame is that my family has honey farms and honey orchards, and he decided to completely commit to the bit where he died. He's got brown hair, but he dyed his mustache honey colored, and his armor has little beehives on it. And I'll show you a picture. You didn't really get to see it, but we got to see in promotional material his helmet, and even his helmet is colored like his mustache. And
Oh my
and
god, this is peak. This
this
is
guy
peak. Holy shit.
committed to the bit so hard, and the fans have completely like they love him. They love Humphrey
Oh
Beesbury.
my god, his gamberson, the quilt of his gamberson is honeycombed. That's adorable.
Yeah, and he only got one line of dialogue in this entire show, and he was asking Baelor what of the Kingsguard, and Baelor is just sort of like, I'll handle the Kingsguard. For the record, Humphrey Beesbury died in the very first charge against the Kingsguard. So Baelor kind of fucking lied and put him under the bus. Baelor, in fact, did not handle the Kingsguard. Where
It's amazing. Also, the fact that his helmet is like I just realized the shape of his helmet That's a fucking beekeeper helmet, dog.
It is. It is. Oh, it's
Oh, that's
brilliant.
amazing. That's amazing.
I,
And
I
also the
got.
fact, like, coming back to like the Star Warsy shit, like some Star Wars characters are like your typical red shirts, and their names literally tell you how they're gonna die. And to the point where in the Clone Wars, there's a Jedi General Ima Gunday, aka Ama
I'm gonna
Gunday,
die.
who
Yeah.
dies in that same episode. And Beesbury gets buried in the bees because
In
his
the
coffin is surrounded by bees.
yeah, they put a queen bee. Fucking bee magic. you know. Aye.
Yeah, I like that interaction.
Aye. I love how every faction completely commits to the bit. Like we're the dragon faction. We're gonna have scales and black armor and flames on everything that we own. We're the apple faction. We're gonna have apples. We're gonna only drink cider. We run a cider orchard and apple orchard, and then Humphrey's just sort of like I'm a part of the bee faction. I watch a bee movie every day. Uh, that's like his Bible. But anyway, that's the Night of the Seven Kingdoms. I'm glad you enjoyed it, and we've recorded this. I'll upload it. If people want more of this, I guess we'll like go through the books, and then we'll get you on. We can make this like a book club thing. Maybe we'll get you to write to this show. We'll see. We'll just, like maybe this will go nowhere. Maybe this is the only time we'll do this. Maybe I won't even upload this. But like, thank you so much for joining me on this, and I'm really happy that you like the show.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for kicking me in the rear to watch it, because I fucking loved it.
Yeah, go watch Night of the Seven Kingdoms, folks. All right, see you later. Bye.
Take care, everybody.